In this video, we're going to discuss thinking, intention, and knowing, how they're similar, how they differ, how they work together, and how you can benefit from this knowledge. Hello everyone! Thinking, knowing, and intention. How are they similar and how do they differ? And what exactly are they? Let's start with what you're most familiar with, and that is thinking. Thinking is done with the brain. Thinking is a part of the mind, but it's not really the mind. Thinking is cognition in a sense of assessment, comparison, and a logical way of deciding whether something is going to work for us or not. Thinking really develops out of survival. It's the survival mode, or the default survival mode of the mind. Thinking is not always the best way of going to figure things out. It seems like it because we've been programmed that the only thing that matters is thinking. There's more to life than just thinking. Tremendously more to life than just thinking. We all know this, and yet we are so invested in thinking that it's hard to believe that there's another way of going about things rather than thinking about them. Our thought process is based in the past. It's based on the information we get from the five senses. The information from the five senses sends nervous impulses to the brain, which is locked inside of the skull, and it makes the best guess of what's going on relative to what you know. Everything that you've learned through your lifetime is processed with the brain in such a way that make an assessment and a comparison to the information that's coming into it. There's a degree of what we can pick up from the DNA as well, which is everything that our ancestors knew, and we can use that as well to make an assessment and a comparison of the information, the limited information that's available through the five senses. Intention is very different than thinking. Intention is an aspect of willpower. We intend to do something. We take the information that we've gathered from our thinking mind, and through the assessment and comparison of the things that are happening in our life, we intend to do something. We intend to go shopping today. We intend to go to work. But intention, those are the obvious things. But intention is really the hope or the desire of knowing to use thinking to get to the end result of something that seems worthwhile at the moment. Knowing is very different than intention or thinking. We know things as in our gut. It's a gut feeling. I just know this is true. Knowing is a combination of emotion, thinking, intention, and then there's an intangible around knowing that's very difficult to put words around. I'll attempt to do that. We know because we know. We know because there is a reason for us to know. We know, a knowing is a bit like a bridge between intention and thinking. That we know that there's an answer there, and we walk towards it in a way that gets a good result. Knowing is oftentimes not trusted because there's a tremendous amount of failure in knowing. This doesn't mean we should not use knowing, because knowing is intuition. Knowing is our instinct. Knowing can seem to be genius. Genius is know. I just know there's an answer there, and they put their attention and intention into this knowing until they get the results they're looking for. They use thinking to assess and compare the data that intention and knowing bring, but knowing is not thinking. Knowing is not thinking. Knowing is something to do with the heart. It is a higher frequency of thought. Knowing is imagination in many ways. We use imagination to know. Knowing is inspiration, which comes from breathing. We breathe in and we get this inspired feeling. We get this inspiration, which is light. It's just pure waves of energy, just light. That inspiration leads to knowing. We just know because we're inspired. Oh my goodness, I know this is possible. Knowing is often in the realm of the impossible, and this is another reason why knowing is not trusted. I mean, it hasn't been done before for the most part, or at least not done by you. Knowing is the realm of invention. We have this desire, this intention to do something. We know that it's possible, and then we put attention to it. The attention to imagination. Attention to imagination becomes intention. So, we have this knowing feeling, which is birthed from imagination, which comes from inspiration. We breathe, we become inspired, we get this light information, this big burst of inspiration, which is light shining into us. And this is an internal thing. From there, we imagine and we know, and then we put attention onto this known imagination, which springs forth in the form of imaginative thought, imaginative knowing. There's a certain amount of cognition in it, so we have, I mean, it's hard to use a word other than thought, because there is an X, Y, and Z involved in this, but it's not thinking, because thinking, again, is in the realm of the past. We hash over what we already know. We have a pool of experience, and that we think about it, and we think about things that have already happened. The kind of thinking that knowing involves hasn't happened yet. It's in the present moment. Thinking is in the past. This kind of knowing is in the present moment. It's happening right now, and it's happening so fast, it's such a high frequency that reflection is not a part of it yet. It comes all at once. We know. Then we imagine through inspiration. So these things, this is a triad of genius, let's say. It's a triad of a way to bring something new into your life. You need a certain amount of thinking. You certainly need intention to bring something new. You need the attention to pay attention to the imagination that is stored in the inspiration and the knowing. In many ways, inspiration and knowing, they're very similar. They come from the same place. They come from the high frequency energy that is deep inside of our spine. It seems almost supernatural or super conscious because you haven't gotten to it yet. It's a discovery. We discover knowing. We get this hunch, this intuitive feeling, this inspiration that's coming from this high frequency energy deep inside of us. And it's an urge. This is urge to discover something that you haven't discovered yet. In some kind of silence. It's a silence in the sense that you're not thinking when it comes to you. All the great discoverers and inventors in history have always said they had a big problem, particularly like in mathematics and physics. They had this problem that they couldn't quite figure out, and then they were relaxed and they were doing something that they enjoyed, and suddenly the answer came to them. This is what I'm speaking of. This is not just for geniuses and artists. This is for all of us to use. All of us can use our knowing. We can use our imagination, our knowing, and our intention to create a new pool of knowledge, of energy that we can use to think with in the world. Because thinking is where the actualization comes about, because we have to decipher whether it's going to really work. We have to assess and analyze and compare the data that has come to us in this inspiration. Because, you know, if you just take the raw inspiration and you run out into the world and start yakking away at it, those kind of people are not real balanced. So there is, again, it's a triad. Once again, I'll say, it comes to us from these high frequency energies that are still in the waveform. They have not yet become particles. Our perception is seeing waves, and then through what we already know, it becomes particles and the known world. This is a way to reach into the unknown. Knowing is a way to reach into the unknown high frequency energies that are deep inside of you, and to dredge them up in the form of inspiration and imagination. From there, we put our attention on it with intention. There's a paradox here, because at first, the attention is vague. It's not intention yet. So knowing becomes intention through attention. But the first phase of intention is like meditation. It's just this wonder, a sense of wonder, this sense of maybe there's more to this. And then we just kind of marinate in that, and it starts to form into something knowable. As it becomes knowable, we can put our intention on it. We can say, that's it. I've got it. I've got my finger on it now. It's right on the tip of my tongue. And then you start to formulate something that's usable in the form of intention. Intent is everything in this world. What makes reality is imagination or desire and intent. We intend things and they come into existence. It doesn't seem like it because we are always in the default mode of memory. It's why life can seem so dull. When we are always in the default mode and we rely heavily on thinking, then we bump into this polarized world of good and bad, and we have to figure everything out. And that wears us out, having to figure everything out. And you can't figure everything out. And the process of trying to figure everything out leads to confusion. And then it's like, I'll just take more of the default mode. Be brave. Reach deep inside of yourself. Breathe deep into your spine. We can learn to breathe into our spine through condensing breathing, and which is the cornerstone of Solar Qigong. And is the main reason why I'm coming to talk to you today, is that if you want to understand knowing, imagination, and intention, it's very helpful to have a scientific way of directing your breath into the spine where these high frequency energies are. That is Solar Qigong. You can go to solarqigong.com, take the easy to follow video lessons that I teach there, and you too can reach inside of your spine and discover the world of imagination, inspiration. Put your attention and intention upon that. Bring that into the world of thinking, and then you too can bring intention into your life in such a way that the things that you want beyond what you've already had will start to come into view.